You are rolling up to a red light in your daily driver. You gently press the brake pedal, and suddenly your car screeches so loud that every pedestrian on the sidewalk turns around to stare at you. Your brake pads still have a solid quarter-inch of meat left on them. The rotors look perfectly fine to the naked eye, and yet your vehicle sounds exactly like a garbage truck grinding to a halt. Frustrated, you take it to the local dealership's service center. The service advisor hands you a $400 repair estimate for a complete pad and rotor replacement. You swallow your pride, swipe your credit card, and assume the nightmare is finally over. 3 weeks later, you are pulling into your driveway, and that exact same ear-piercing squeal is right back. This is the endless, incredibly expensive cycle that modern repair shops absolutely rely on to keep their revenue up. Today, we are going to completely break that cycle. The truth is that obnoxious squealing noise in the vast majority of cases has absolutely nothing to do with your brake pads being worn out. Automotive engineers over in Germany figured this out decades ago. Technicians working on high-end cars like Porsche and Mercedes-Benz follow a very specific diagnostic and correction protocol before they even think about throwing new parts at a vehicle. But over here, most brake shops just want to flip cars in and out of the service bay as fast as humanly possible, which means you are constantly paying for hardware you simply do not need. Today, I am going to walk you through how to permanently fix this annoying issue right in your own driveway for under $25, using tools you probably already have sitting in your garage. Before we start tearing things apart and unbolting calipers, you have to understand exactly why your brakes are screaming at you in the first place. If you do not understand the underlying physics, you are just guessing. Brake squeal is almost never a wear issue, it is a vibration issue. I want you to imagine running a wet finger around the rim of a thin crystal wine glass. That high-pitched, ringing sound you hear is caused by continuous friction, turning into an acoustic vibration. The exact same mechanical phenomenon happens between your brake pad and your iron rotor. Modern braking systems are highly engineered to absorb and dampen these exact vibrations. But everyday real-world driving habits completely ruin that delicate balance. The absolute biggest culprit causing this vibration is something called glazing. When you are stuck in stop-and-go city traffic, you are constantly riding the brakes lightly. The brakes get warm, but they never get pushed hard enough to reach their optimal, extreme operating temperature. Over time, this constant light friction bakes a hard, shiny, glass-like layer onto both the surface of the iron rotor and the face of the brake pad. Instead of the brake pad smoothly gripping the iron, it violently skips and shatters across that slick, glassy surface. Those microscopic, rapid-fire vibrations travel straight through the brake caliper, into the suspension components, and turn into that horrific squeak that drives you insane. Because we know that glazing is the primary enemy here, there is a totally free procedure you need to try first, before you even grab a floor jack or take off a single lug nut. This is something almost no standard mechanic will ever tell you to do, but it is the secret sauce for high-performance vehicles. It is called bedding the brakes. Sometimes all of that glazed, baked-on material just needs to be aggressively burned off through controlled heat. Cycling. Take your car out to a safe, empty back road, a deserted industrial park on a Sunday, or a long stretch of highway where there is absolutely no traffic behind you. Get your vehicle up to a speed of about 50 miles per hour and press the brake pedal firmly and aggressively to slow the car down to about 5 miles per hour. Do not come to a complete dead stop. If you stop completely with the brakes scorching hot, you will imprint a layer of pad material onto one single spot on the rotor and cause a horrible pulsation in the steering wheel later. Just slow down hard to 5 miles per hour, roll forward for a bit to let fresh air flow through the wheel wells, and then repeat that exact same hard braking process about 6 to 8 times in a row. As you do this, you will probably start to smell a very distinct, harsh burning odor coming from outside the car. Do not panic, that is perfectly normal. That is the intense heat physically burning off the glass like glaze and transferring a fresh, even, micro-thin layer of friction material directly onto the rotor face. After your last hard slow down, drive the car normally for about 10 to 15 minutes without touching the brakes at all, so everything can slowly and properly cool down to ambient temperature. If the squeal completely vanishes the next time you stop, congratulations, you just fixed your car for absolutely free. If you are already realizing just how much money the dealerships and quick lube shops have been making off you with unnecessary brake pad slaps and rotor swaps, do me a quick favor and hit that subscribe button right now. It is my absolute goal to keep your vehicles running perfectly without you getting completely scammed at the service desk, and having you join the community really helps push that mission forward. Now, if the aggressive bedding process does not cure the noise, it means the vibration is rooted a bit deeper in the physical hardware, and it is time to get your hands dirty. Park the car on a flat surface. Safely jack it up, secure it on heavy-duty jack stands, and pull the wheel off. This is where the true European inspection protocol begins. Before you unbolt anything, look closely at the thickness of the brake pad. You can usually see it right through the top window of the caliper. If you have more than 1/8 of an inch of friction material left between the metal backing plate and the rotor, the pad itself is absolutely not the problem. Most modern brake pads have a small metal wear indicator clip that is specifically designed to scrape against the rotor and screech when the pad gets dangerously low, usually right around 1/16 of an inch. If you are well above that thickness, throwing a brand new pad in there will just temporarily mask the real issue, and the noise will return. Next, drag your fingernail across the large, flat face of the brake rotor. If it feels as smooth as a bathroom mirror or looks incredibly shiny and reflective, you have severe surface glazing. Take a small piece of 120 grit sandpaper and aggressively scuff the entire face of the rotor. You need to do this in a crosshatch pattern, meaning you scrub diagonally one way and then diagonally the opposite way. You are not trying to grind the heavy iron down or act like a machine shop lathe. You are simply roughing up that slick, polished surface just enough so the brake pad actually has a mechanical texture to bite into. Give the face of the brake pad the same exact light sanding treatment to remove its hard outer crust. While you are staring at the rotor, there is a massive step that almost every single amateur mechanic does, and it is the first new trick I want to introduce you to that goes beyond the basic pad swap. You have to think about what is sitting directly behind that brake rotor, the wheel hub assembly. Over the years, especially if you live in an area that uses road salt in the winter, hard rust and heavy scale build up on the flat face of the wheel hub right where the rotor mounts. If you have even a paper-thin, uneven layer of rust trapped between the hub and the inside hat of the rotor will never sit perfectly flat. As you drive down the road, that rotor will wobble microscopically side to side. In the automotive engineering world, this is called lateral runout. That tiny wobble constantly slaps the brake pad back and forth as the wheel turns, creating an insane amount of high-frequency vibration and, you guessed it, squealing. Take the rotor completely off, attach a heavy wire brush wheel to a power drill, and scrub the absolute life out of that wheel hub until you see nothing but bare, shiny, smooth metal. Make sure the inside mating surface of the rotor is completely free of rust scale as well before you put it back on. Once the hub is spotless, turn your attention to the caliper bracket itself. This is the heavy cast iron housing that stays bolted to the steering knuckle, which the brake pads physically sit inside. In older repair methods, technicians would spend 20 minutes spraying harsh brake cleaner and aggressively scrubbing the old, rusty metal abutment clips where the pads slide. I am going to save you a massive headache right here. Instead of wasting your time cleaning those old, crusty clips, just replace them entirely. A brand new set of stainless steel brake hardware clips costs maybe $5 to $10 at any local auto parts store. Those clips act as the smooth, frictionless railroad tracks that your brake pads slide back and forth on every time you touch the pedal. When they get pitted, rusted, and gunked up with compacted brake dust, the brake pad literally gets wedged tightly in the bracket. A stuck brake pad cannot pull back away from the rotor when you let your foot off the pedal. This means the pad constantly drags on the iron as you drive, massively overheating the system, immediately glazing over the friction material, and screaming constantly. Throwing those old clips straight into the trash can and snapping in fresh, slick stainless steel hardware will completely eliminate that binding issue and allow the pad to float freely exactly as designed. With your fresh clips securely snapped into place, we arrive at the absolute most critical part of the entire anti-squeak process: lubrication. If you get this specific step wrong, you will ruin your entire braking system. Grab a bottle of high-temperature copper anti-seize compound or a premium ceramic silicone brake grease. Listen to me very carefully on this point. You never, ever, under any circumstances, put a single drop of grease on the friction side of the brake pad or anywhere on the flat face of the iron rotor. If you get lubricant on the friction surfaces, your vehicle simply will not stop, and you will end up rear-ending the car in front of you. You only want to apply lubrication to the exact points where metal touches metal. Put a very thin, almost translucent layer of grease on the metal back plate of the brake pad, specifically in the circular area where the hydraulic caliper piston pushes against it. Then, put a tiny dab of grease on the metal ears of the brake pads. Those are the little tabs on the far ends of the pad that slide back and forth inside the new stainless steel hardware clips you just installed. Finally, you need to pull out the caliper slide pin. These are the two long bolts covered by little rubber boots that allow the entire brake caliper to slide smoothly back and forth to center itself. Pull them completely out. Wipe off all the old, nasty, dried-up grease with a shop towel. Coat them in fresh, clean brake lubricant, and slide them back into their bores. You must make sure they move in and out smoothly with zero binding, almost like a slide trombone. If those pins are seized up, your caliper will apply uneven pressure, drag on the rotor, and cause the exact same squealing issue we are trying to fix. And a quick pro tip here. Make sure you are using a dedicated silicone-based brake grease for those pins. If you use a standard petroleum-based chassis grease, the petroleum will chemically react with the rubber boots, causing them to swell up, tear open, and let water inside, which will rust the pins solid within a few months. Once everything is fully greased, properly reassembled, and securely bolted back onto the car, go ahead and repeat that aggressive driving and bedding process I mentioned earlier to perfectly marry the freshly sanded rotor to the clean brake pads. This simple Saturday afternoon project fixes the vast majority of brake noise. Complaints on everything from a standard Honda Civic to a heavy-duty Ford F-150 without requiring you to buy expensive major components. Of course, you need to use some basic common sense here. If you inspect your brakes and see that the pads are completely worn down to the bare metal backing plate, or if the iron rotor has a massive rusted lip on the outer edge that is thicker than a 1/16 of an inch, or if the noise you hear is a deep, nasty, aggressive metal grinding sound rather than a high-pitched squeal, then your components are genuinely destroyed and you absolutely need to buy a full replacement set. Also, if your brakes only squeak once or twice when you back out of your driveway first thing in the morning, and then go completely silent for the rest of the day, do not touch anything at all. That is just overnight moisture causing completely harmless flash rust on the raw iron, and the brake pads naturally scrape it off the very first time you hit the stop sign at the end of your street. It is completely normal behavior. The automotive repair industry thrives on the simple fact that most drivers are completely terrified of working on their own vehicle. They rely on the mystery of mechanics to sell you quick, highly profitable parts, swaps that treat the symptom but completely ignore the actual root cause of the problem. Spending 30 minutes cleaning the wheel hub, installing fresh hardware clips, and carefully applying specialized grease to the proper friction points is not a profitable use of time for a mechanic trying to beat the flat rate clock, but it is your vehicle and your money. By taking the time to truly understand the system and properly prep the components, you can make your vehicle ride as quietly and smoothly as the day it rolled off the dealership showroom floor. If this guide gave you the confidence to tackle your next garage project and keep more of your hard-earned money securely in your own pocket, be sure to subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on these insider automotive secrets. Let me know down in the comments what specific car you are wrenching on this weekend, and if this method finally cured your brake squeal. Drive safe, take care of your rides, and I will see you in the next one.